Good morning. Thank you, Brother Doug, for taking charge and go ahead and doing that. I appreciate that. It is good to be back with you this morning. I was out last week. I really had kind of kept it kind of quiet because we knew we had a wedding this weekend. I've had the coronavirus for a third time last week, or week before last, whatever you want to say now. Last Sunday, that's why I didn't come. I didn't figure nobody wanted me to come. Yeah. But anyway, and Daddy talked. He done an outstanding job. I listened to it online. I thought it was excellent, and it really was. And he was actually supposed to teach today because I had such a busy week, and I was going to teach last Sunday and him today. But anyway, it worked out where he taught last Sunday, and he's home today, I think, with a kidney stone. So I reckon that worked out pretty good too for for both of us. But it is good to be back in the house of the Lord with you this morning. I mean that. Matthew chapter 7. Kind of a little bit of a difficult subject in a sense. If anybody in the world, even non-Christians, know a verse of Scripture in the Bible, it's Matthew 7:1. If you're familiar with it, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody you talk to, you know. When the Bible says don't judge, we hear that often. I'm going to start by saying this. If you're living in sin, I mean, everybody sins, I understand that, but if you have a lifestyle of sin, whether it be lying, stealing, adultery, homosexuality, and you're caught mixed up in that and somebody sees it, they're not judging you. The Bible's judging you because you're wrong. It's just that simple. It don't matter what I say about you altogether, but it matters what he says about you, what he thinks of you. That's what counts. The judging that Jesus was referring to here is, in my opinion, now we're going to go somewhere else in the Bible after this in just a moment, and try to explain what Jesus is talking about. Remember, this is the fourth week, I believe we've been on the Sermon on the Mount, fourth or fifth, I don't remember now, right, good while. The Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is still preaching the same sermon that he started in Matthew chapter 5. Remember I told you, if you remember, I remember the Beatitudes is a story, a picture of somebody coming to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and getting forgiveness in their sins. Then he tells them, once they're saved, you're the light of the world. You remember, the salt of the earth. Remember, then he told us some things. He used the law and enhanced the Ten Commandments, the law, and told them things they should or shouldn't be doing, if you remember, if you've been here. Now he comes to a very important part of a Christian walk. And he's still on the same sermon. And he says, judge not, that ye be not judged. Judge not, that ye be not judged. People, everybody in this building is probably in a different spot, different place in your relationship with Christ than others. Let me see if I can try to explain. I may have to use work, but that's something we can all understand. I could hire a concrete guy tomorrow, brand new. Miss Joey, never done it before in his life. I could. He would be an employee. But he wouldn't know anything. But he's just as much as an employee. Preacher David is the one that's been there as long as I have, almost 12 years. He is just as much. I don't care what he does. He is just as much. Now, who would know the most? The one that's been there long, in general. In general. And the same way in Christians. There's Christian people who haven't been saved in a long time. They don't know what somebody's been walking in this way 20 and 30 years. Don't know what they're going to face in life. They just don't know. But you can't look at them and judge and feel they're not a Christian just because they're not where you're at. The Bible talks about in one place, I didn't look this up, and I know it's in there, about working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I know it's in there. I just can't, it won't come to mind exactly where it's at. That's a picture in its context of a garden. Now, when you go out and you till the ground and you throw some fertilizer seed in the ground, it's a garden. There might not be one thing in it, but it's just as much of a garden as it will be if the trees, if everything's hanging full. It's a garden. But Mr. David, it's not good for anything for a few months before whatever you're planted comes up and you're able to harvest it. It's a garden the whole time. But it don't really benefit us until the end when we go to pick whatever's on it. And that's the picture of what he's saying about working out your own salvation. That's the picture of what's going on. I mean, somebody might be just have the seed planted. Somebody may be growing just a little. You know, you've been to the garden after a rain. All of a sudden, the old people call it the garden shouted or it growed up. You know what I mean? Y'all know what I'm saying? It grows overnight. But it's still not got any fruit on it. And Christians' lives are the same way. Everybody here probably at a different level. And I know sometimes length of time don't mean, sometimes it may, I hate to say this, but I've always been one to learn everything the hard way. It took me twice as long to learn anything than anybody else. What I should have known at 10 years, it's probably 20 before I knew it. I mean, I'm just telling you how it was with me. That's just the way it is. You got to realize in the time that they were saved, you got to realize there's a transition period here. They were sacrificing animals. All of a sudden, Jesus is fixing to come on the scene. He's fixing to die, and that's going to change their lifestyle. You got to realize all that their Old Testament law that we don't live by. You got to realize all the Jews were living by that. There was meats they didn't eat. There were fish that they didn't eat. They had to eat fish with scales. They couldn't, the hoofs. I mean, about the hoofs, there were just certain things they could not eat. But here, after Jesus comes, he cleans everything and said it's all. And he even tells Peter in the book of Acts to write. He shows him a picture of all the animals and said, "Rise, kill, and eat." And Peter says, "No." 3 times Peter said, "No, Lord, I can't do that." It's believed that Peter and Paul had a really big falling out. I know the Bible don't put it like that, but if you read behind people, they think they really had a big falling out because Peter, once he was saved, didn't want to eat with people that weren't circumcised. Because under the law, you had to be circumcised. And if not, you would excommunicate yourself among them. You weren't supposed to eat and do things that they were doing. But and Paul got aggravated with Peter and said, "No, you can't preach that. That's not Jesus." So you got to realize that's what's going on. And Jesus, now this is before all that happened, but Jesus knew it was coming. He knows all things. And he tells them after they've been saved and after he tells them they're the light of the world and salt of the earth, he says, "Judge not, and she be not judged." Verse 2, and I'm going to go somewhere else in just a minute. Verse 2. Won't go? I'll go to the... I got it right here. "For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, or whatever scale or standard you use to measure, it will be measured to you again." I'm going to read another one, and then we're going to, or 2 more, then we're going to go somewhere else. "And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast a mote out of thy brother's eye." In a nutshell, what that's telling you, we can't see our problems. We can't see our faults. We are so quickly to jump and pounce on somebody and judge over little things. And it happens. I hear it all the time. Not necessarily here, but I mean in the world. And we always, the old country saying that it's like the pot calling the kettle black, so to speak. Y'all know that terminology, surely. Y'all know what that means. Here, Jesus used an analogy of a beam. I mean, a beam could be that centerpiece running through the middle of the building. You look up and see it. But the mote he's talking about, how many has ever had a splinter in your hand and you couldn't even see it? But it bothered you because you knew it was there. That's what the word mote, in contrast, that's what it means. A beam is something that is large and it blocks your view. That's what it does. But a splinter can be something so small you can't even see. And Jesus is telling him, he said, "Listen, that guy's got a splinter. You're the one with the beam. Get the beam out of the way, then you can see how to remove the splinter. And that's what Jesus is telling him. Now, we're not talking about, again, I mentioned some things in the beginning. If you get the idea that I say it's all right to lie, cheat, and steal, and adultery and homosexuality, you're missing it. That's wrong, period. I don't care who you are. It's wrong. And that's not what he's talking about. Now, let's go to Romans chapter 14, I think it is. Romans chapter 14. Romans 14:1. Him that is weak in the faith, receive ye, but not the doubtful disputations. We should never be arguing and cause problems and little things in life. I mean, I've seen little teeny things split churches. Things that really don't even matter. Again, I ain't talking about the big things I ain't talking about those things. We're talking about little things. I've always laughed about it, but I've heard him tell it more than one time. At least I think I got the right person. Preacher Carl Ever Miles, when we was singing in a church somewhere or another years back, and there was two women that really went to the same church. One sit on one side, one sit on this side. And they wouldn't talk. They were just mortal enemies. And during the service one night, if I got it right, come to find out, a goose it went from one person's house to eat the garden of another house. I mean, at least that's just what I remember about it. That's nothing to be. I mean, listen, if they eat all your stuff, pay them. Be done with it. But they said the finally woman who stood up in the church said, "Goose or no goose, I got to be loose." Now I've heard him tell that. Preacher Wayne, am I right? You remember that? Okay, I thought I had the right person. I know he played with them, sung with them years back. But that's little things. Don't let little things of that nature destroy you. It'll destroy you is what it'll do. You can harbor ill feelings and ill will and anger, and it won't do nothing but just grow. It'll just grow inside of you. The more you think about it, the madder you'll become. And it just happens. He said, just receive him this week. Listen, everybody might not be as strong as you are in the Lord. They may not be. You got to give them a chance. You got to give them a chance to let God work on them and mold them and make them like he wants them, just like you've allowed God to do you. No need to be upset and angry and mad over little small things. He said, him that's weak, Paul said, here, listen, receive him. Paul knew that everybody in the church at Rome, that there was in different places in their walk with Christ. Some was newborn in Christ. Some of them had been saved a little while. Paul knew that. And he said, him this week, just receive him. Listen, if there's somebody here this week, the church needs to just love you and help you. It's just that simple. They don't need to tear you down. They don't need to talk about you behind your back. They need to help you get where you need to be. And that's all he's going to teach through this whole thing. Don't judge them, love them. I mean, you're going to see that in this text. Don't judge them, love them. Verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Now, in their time frame, you know what I said earlier that Jesus, before Jesus, they offered sacrifices. Remember, like the first sacrifice, they killed a lamb and they eat the lamb. Well, not only did Jesus do that, or God do that for his people, all nations under the earth have different gods they serve, and they would sacrifice different animals to their gods. So, a lot of times, if they'd offered a sacrifice to another god, then they wouldn't be able to eat that meat. The children of Christians wouldn't be able to eat that meat. So he's saying here, one believes that he may eat all things. But another who is weak said, no, I can't do that. I'm just going to eat herbs. I'm not going to eat any meat whatsoever. I'm just going to eat herbs. No meat for me. You're always going to have people. I don't know how to say this, but I'm trying to. It's a difficult subject, more than what you realize, because I want to make sure I say the right things. But there's some people think they can't literally do anything. When I was growing up, I'll put it like this. When I was growing up, I mean, most everything was wrong because those people didn't think they could do those things and be saved. But yet now today, there's people doing those same things, yet they say they're saved. They're in two different places in their walk with God. Two different. If there's something that you see other people do and you think it's wrong for you to do, don't do it. Don't do it. And that's what he's pretty much trying to say. Accept one another. Accept them for who they are. Again, I'm not talking about those other things I mentioned. And again, I'm not going to repeat them over and over. Those big things. We're talking about little things. And we'll get to some little things in this text. Don't do them. If you think you're going to do something that's going to cause you to lose your relationship with God and you're not going to be where you ought to be, if you don't do them, stay away from them. For one believes that he made all things. Another who is weak, he's just certain. In other words, there's certain things he just can't do. And that's near. They may be some things that might not be wrong. If that person done it, it would encourage him to do more wrong. And that's a true statement, if it makes sense to you. It's true. But don't do them. Stay away from them. Verse 3. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not. And let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God hath received him. The one that believes he can eat it, God's received him. The one that believes he can't eat it and be right, God received him. That's in a nutshell what it's saying. God's receiving them. God's receiving them. Listen here, you can't per se live your life to satisfy everybody, because if you did, you'd have to stay home. If that makes sense. You'd have to stay home, because everybody's going to find something wrong with, you're going to have people, this is wrong, that's wrong. That's just the way it is. But it says, let not him that eateth despise. In other words, the one that you doing a little bit more in your walk and what they're doing as far as things, your activities, if they can't do them, don't despise them. Love them. If you see somebody else doing something, you say, I can't do that, don't despise them, love them. That's all he's trying to say. Don't judge them. Verse 4. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea, he shall be holding up, for God is able to make him stand. It ain't my place to judge you. You're going to stand before a judge one day. And you're going to give an account for everything you do. You're not going to have to give not one account for what I did. What I did or what I didn't do. It won't matter. There, when you stand before God, it'll be you and him. Period. It won't be with mom or brother or sister or whoever, or preacher. It'll be you and God, period. And he says, who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he stands to fall. In other words, God's looking down, and if you stand, you fall. He said, God's going to hold you up. And for God is able to make him stand. It matters what God thinks about you. It might not matter what I think about you and what everybody else thinks about you. I'm going to tell you, it matters what God thinks about you. That's what matters most. Verse 5, and there's a lot in this chapter. I mean, I could really spend a long time, but I'm trying to hurry. One man esteemeth one day above another, and another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Now, I know where I'm at, and I'm not trying to create the problem. We'll just use this particular verse as Sunday. We'll just use it. Y'all will know where I'm going before I get there. There are some people today have already cooked or will cook and eat at home and not go anywhere. And they think we're wrong with that. Period. There's others that won't do that. That'll be in a restaurant somewhere and they're going to eat after a while. One man esteemeth one day above another, and another esteemeth every day alike. Does that make sense so far? They ain't neither one of them wrong. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Now, if you can't do that, stay home. But in return, don't criticize the one that does. Now, you may disagree with that, and it's okay. That's what I think. That's what I think it's teaching you here. If you can't do that and you think you'd be wrong to do that, let me tell you something. If you go do it and you think it's wrong, let me tell you something. It's wrong to you. Period. It's wrong to you. If you judge somebody else by it because you've seen them do it and they do it, and you go do just what you're just wrong. Don't do it. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. I won't spend a lot of time there. I hope you get some of you upset with me in verse 6, but I mean, don't judge one another for that time. That doesn't matter. You're not going to hell because you went out and eat today. You're going to hell because you reject Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of your life, period. That's why you're going to hell, because you refuse to accept Him. He says, he that regards the day regards it unto the Lord. In other words, the one that says, hey, I'm setting this say aside, and I don't do nothing today, but I'll go to church and I'll go home and I'll come back to church. He said, regards it unto the Lord. You're not doing anything wrong by doing that. You're regarding it unto the Lord. And he that regardeth not the day to the Lord doth not regard it. He that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not to the Lord, he eateth not and giveth God thanks. In other words, he's just pretty much saying in so many words, he that eats is going to give thanks. If he's a child of God, he's going to give God thanks for the day. And if he eats, and if he don't eat, he's going to give God thanks for the day. Don't look at one another. And I'm just using, it's just today. There's other little things that everybody's probably going through all of his mind. You know, you see people do this. Well, I can't do that. And don't. And if it's something that you don't think you can do, be fully persuaded in your own mind. Hey, just stay away from it. There are some little things, and I won't name them, but I will say this right here. I will say this, and this is referring to me. There was one little thing, and I'm not even going to tell you what it is. And I think it's little, but it was probably the start of my downfall. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it probably was the start of it. And it was very, very little. Very, very little. But it took me in a step in the wrong direction. And if there's something that's, even though, I remember I talked here just a few weeks ago about how something would be so little, then all of a sudden, before you realize it's as big as a tree. You remember we talked about that just a few weeks ago, as big as a tree? Just that little thing is a foothold for the devil to get in. There might not have been nothing wrong with that, what I did. But what it done, it opened the doors for other little things. And again, I ain't going to tell you what it is. If you was to ask me one-on-one, I'd probably tell you, but I'm not going to tell you from here. But that's the way that the devil works. And if I had stayed away from that, I probably would have saved myself a whole lot of heartaches and troubles and trials and things that I went through. So be fully persuaded in your own mind. And I wouldn't have done that prior to that. It's just I hit a time and point in my life I just did it. That's all I can tell you. I can't really know why. But be fully persuaded in your own mind. If there's a little thing out there you think is harmful for you, stay away from it. Keep your family away from it. Because it may be the very little thing that the devil uses to get you. The little thing. Verse 7. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dies to himself. Verse 8. For whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. In other words, we've been born again, we know him. Whether we live, whether we die, we belong to the Lord. That is what it says. Verse 9. For to this end Christ both died, rose, and revived, that he might bring the Lord of both the dead and the living. I'm going to keep on going. Verse. But why doest thou judge thy brother? Or why doest thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. I've already said this. I'm going to say every one of us will stand before God. Now, this here's what most people refer to as a Bema judgment. Don't let that. That just means it's a place where Christian people will stand. It's a judgment where Christian people will stand, and it carries the idea of like an Olympic game. And I don't know much about the Olympics, really very little. I don't watch them, but it carries the idea of the Olympics, because the Olympics was developed during this time, technically, in the times of the Bible through here. But you would go before a judge, or judges, in the Olympics. It would be more than one, it'd be several judges, and they would score you and tell you, how many points or whatever the case may have been. But here we'll stand before God at a beam of judgment seat, and we'll be judged according to what we've done or what we didn't do here on earth. Whether we receive crowns or whether we receive any types of rewards at all, we'll stand before God. I think a lot of times people don't think like that. We just don't. We don't think that one day we'll stand before God. I often think about when I stand before Him. I mean, there's a lot of things I ain't done that I should have done. Lots of things. There's people that I'll never ever have opportunity that I'm not their judge by no means, but the shape they died, I feel like they died and went to hell. I don't know that, and I have missed my opportunity because I let it go. I let it by. I mean, I just have. I mean, you can't prove that when the judgment comes and the lost are judged, that you ain't in a conversation or in a congregation rather, and looking at them as they be judged, and God sentences them into hell, and they walk by you and look at you and say, "Why didn't you tell me?" Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's, and why didn't you tell me? I would have just done different if you would have just told me. Now you can't prove that that's not so. Why else would God have to wipe every tear from your eye? I mean, what other reason would there be if you were dying and you were on your way to heaven and God says, "I have to make all things new"? Listen here, if everybody you knew was going to be in heaven, there won't be no reason to make everything new. There won't be no reason, preacher Wayne, to wipe the tears from your eyes. But you can't prove that you won't be in as a spectator and then walk by you and say, "Why didn't you just tell me?" And you watch them be cast into the lake of fire. We're going to stand before a judge and give an account for the things we did and didn't do here in this life. And He's the judge that matters. I think it was Paul that said he was going to stand before the righteous judge. Paul had stood before many judges, and all of them had done him wrong. Put him in prison and having him whipped and different things they had him do. But he said one day he would stand before the righteous judge. And we'll all stand before that righteous judgment and give an account for what we've done here in this life. Life is short, but life is important, more important than what we realize. I mean, there's people, everybody in this building can reach somebody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are, how young. Everybody in this building can reach somebody. But we've got to be the one to take the initiative to do it. We just can't walk by them and think they're just going to be saved. It ain't going to happen that way. We need to be a witness and be telling people about Jesus. They don't get mixed up in little things and judge and cause problems. And life's too short for that. But to be a witness and lift Jesus up high where everybody might see Jesus, see Christ, and want to be saved to come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Verse 11. "For it is written, as I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God." There's coming a day, every knee will bow and every tongue confess. Everyone. Even the ones that don't believe in it today, there will be a day when they'll kneel before Him and they'll say they believe, but it'll be too late. It'll be too late. But in verse 12. "So then every one of us shall give an account of himself to God." Don't worry about judging your neighbor. Don't worry about judging the person beside you. You're the one got to give the account. I've said that several times. You're the one got to give the account. Verse 13. "Let us therefore judge one another anymore. Let us not therefore judge one another any more. But judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or occasion to fall in his brother's way." Now, you remember the little things we were talking about a while ago that may be okay for you, but not okay for the other guy? Remember I said that just a few minutes ago? Now here's the problem. I told you there'd be a little bit more we'd get to. You might be able to do something other that somebody else can. I'm not going to dispute that with you. But when you know the other guy's weak, don't go out there and rub that in him and let him see you doing all those things. And it might not be a big thing like I told you, but don't let them see you do it. It just create problems and put a stumbling block and cause them to fall. You might, again, it might be that little thing that you put a stumbling block in their way, and all of a sudden they see you do something other, and they go do it, but now they can't stop there. They got to go further. I hope that makes sense to you. That's as plain as I know how to put it. Don't do it. Don't do it. If there's something other that you know that it's going to cause your brother to fall, it's going to create a problem in his life, stay away from it. Don't do it in front of, don't just go do it. Let him or her, whatever the case may be, just see you do it. Stay away from it. It's not necessary. But people don't seem to care a lot of times. Really, they just don't seem to care. They just do it and don't worry about nobody. Only worry about themselves. But don't do things that's going to create a stumbling block to your neighbor, to you, whether it be a family or a friend, whoever it may be. Just don't do it. I don't persuade people. There's things I believe that I don't teach them up here. Nothing wrong with it. I don't teach it because I would never want to persuade somebody something other to get them in trouble. I'll say this. Me personally, probably would believe more like an independent Baptist than I would probably a free will Baptist. Don't throw rocks at me. I'm just telling you where I'm at. I probably would. And there's certain things they believe that it's a little bit different than free will Baptist. And we're all saved. If you know Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. But you don't try to tell somebody they can get forgiveness of anything they do, because that's going to open the door for some people to just go do it. They just going to go do it. Well, you know, Jay said I can get forgiveness of it. You're thinking wrong. You're thinking wrong. And there's things I don't really discuss with people, because I would never want me to get them in trouble. I believe that if a man is saved, truly saved, and he gets out of the will of God, God will chastise him, and he gets back where he ought to be. That's just what I believe. I believe the prodigal son's a perfect example of that. God will let you go as far as you want to go, just let you try your own thing, and it ain't working, and you're getting beat up on the left hand, you're getting beat up on the right hand, you're losing everything you got, and he just kept right on going. But one day, after everything was gone, he realized what he had at home. And all those things he walked by that he spent his money on the way there, everything he done, whatever he done, everything he spent his money on, when he got way out there, he had to turn around and pass that same stuff to get back home. He had to walk right back by it and stay away from it, because he finally had got his mind back on the Father's house. God will let us go in our lives, and he'll chastise us, and he'll warn us, and he'll do all those things. And some people like me, I'm hard-headed, we just keep right on walking. But I promise you, the day will come, if you've truly been saved, God will get your attention. I just believe that God will get your attention, and you'll finally, at some point in your life, realize where you went wrong, and you'll want to get back to where you're at. Now, that's just what I believe. You don't have to believe it that way. I went through a lot. In fact, the way I was raised, I've said this also to my wife. She said, I don't believe that to be so. But Danny, I'll tell you, well, I was raised. You had one shot at this thing. My daddy ain't here today, but he could vouch for me. I was raised that way. You had one shot. You didn't get. Mama's sitting here too. It's just the way it was brought to me. Not saying mom and daddy, but the church and the denomination. You had one shot. Man, when I messed up, it was awful. I wasn't wished out on my worst enemy. I ain't talking about the addiction and depression. I'm talking about the shame and disgrace. And I don't wish that on nobody. I don't think I'd have ever went back to church if had not have been it. So I went to a little Bible Institute out on 905. And they taught me, when you mess up, God will chastise you, and he'll chastise you until he gets you back where he wants you to be. Now, I wasn't raised that way. Now, you might have been, and if you are, that's great. I wasn't. One shot. And I blew mine. Mine was gone. But I can still hear them words at that school over there. Repent and walk away from it. God will chastise you. And you'll get out of it. I cried every day of my life. And my wife along with me. And for almost 2 years, I told her, I said, listen, I'm being chastised. I said, I did wrong. One day we'll wake up, things will be different. She's been great. But I could understand her side too. She didn't think that would ever happen. One day I woke up. God led me here to this church. And when we walked in this church, I knew I was at the right place, although I didn't want to be here. I did not want to come. I'd just been through too much. I didn't ever want to come back. I mean, I just to a Free Will Baptist Church. I weren't going. In my mind, my wife's the one called me on a Wednesday and said, let's go to Evergreen tonight. She didn't get to go to church much. She was having to work a lot. Long story, but she was having to work Sundays and every other day of the week. She got off early and hadn't been to church. I couldn't tell you when, but she picked up the phone. Said, I think we need to go to Evergreen. And I knew she was telling the truth, but I didn't want to go. And I just said, well, we'll see when you get home. Hannah didn't want to come either. But when I walked in the doors of the church, I knew I was at the right place. And that night the preacher preached, all is well. Ain't God done something? What I've been waiting on for 2 years, or actually more longer than that, because I've been praying through drug addiction for several years. Actually, it's been 4 or 5 years or longer. But at least 2 years of chastisement. And all of a sudden, it was just like overnight, it was gone. Because I woke up one day and God said He suffered enough. And He's learned this lesson. And I started my journey back to where He wanted me to be. But I don't ever want to do anything to put a stumbling block in somebody's way. And tell them it's all right, they do this, that God's going to forgive you or do that. God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to open a door for somebody to get themselves involved in something other. And that's what I mean by that. Just sometimes you got to be careful what you teach and what you preach. You just have to be careful sometimes what you say, because people take it the wrong way. No, I believe God can forgive you of anything in this world. I sure do. I don't think there's anything you could do. If God dealt with your heart, He won't forgive you of your sin. I believe that. But I don't want to tell you something to make you get out of the will of God and get out there somewhere where you don't need to be. I don't want to do that. That's why you need a relationship with God and work out your salvation between you and God. God knows what you can do and what you can't do. You know what? I prayed for something a long time in my life, and the very thing that God gave me, Brother Doug, wound up almost destroying me. And He gave me exactly what I wanted. Really? I ain't joking. He gave me exactly what I wanted. Just like that prodigal son, he got what he wanted. And the very thing he got what he wanted almost destroyed him. Don't get what you want. Let God give you what He knows you can take and what He knows you can handle. Life is short. Life is short. You may live to be 100. I don't care if you live to be 1,000. It's going to end. It's going to end. Whether it be 100 years or whether it be 1,000. And then what you going to do? If you ain't born again, you ain't washed in the blood, you don't have the blood of Christ applied to your life, you're going to spend eternity in hell. It's just that simple. Don't be a stumbling block to your brother. Don't let him see you do things that's going to lead him down the wrong path. I never tried to persuade people they all right to do this, all right to do that. People ask me questions all the time, and I try to answer them as good as I can, but I never try to persuade somebody. There's certain things I just don't try to persuade them of. I had rather you live not doing something other that would destroy you than to tell you it's all right for you to do something that leads you down the wrong path. Because it can happen easily. Very, very easily can you get led down the wrong path. And I don't want to be a stumbling block or occasion to fall in his brother's way. I don't want to be that person. Well, I'm going to have to quit here in a minute. This whole chapter is good. The whole chapter. It's really good. Let's read another verse or two and I'll try to quit. Verse 14. I know and persuaded by the Lord Jesus that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean. Now, I already said that. And what I mean by that, there's something you think's wrong, although you may see your brother do it. That's what that's telling you. But if you think it's wrong for you to do it. That's what that verse is telling you. Verse 15. But if thy brother be grieved with thy meat, now walkest thou not charitably. Destroy not him destroy not him with thy meat, for whom Christ died. Now listen here. He said, if you're causing him problems, you're not walking in love. That's what that's telling you. You're not walking in love. If there's things that you're doing that you know is going to create problems for your brother, and you're doing it anyway, right in front of him, right there, where he can just see everything you do. You're not walking in love. You don't love him like you love yourself. And love the Lord thy God with all your heart, mind, body, soul, and strength, and thy neighbor as what? Thyself. You're not loving that brother as yourself if you're doing things that you know would destroy him. Because it might be just the direction it would lead him. And it says, destroy him not that with thy meat. No, don't destroy him with the things you do, for whom Christ died, because Jesus died for that brother just like he did you. Verse 16. Let not then your good be evil spoken of. Verse 17. For the kingdom of God is not meat and drink, but righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Ghost. Verse 18. I'm just going to read another verse. For he that is in these things serveth Christ is acceptable to God and approved of men. Let's see. We got a couple more verses up there, ain't we? I don't know. Let's read a couple more. I've got to quit here in a minute. Let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace, and things wherewith one may edify. In other words, do things and it's going to cause peace in between you. It's going to edify one another and not tear one another down. Verse 20. For meat destroys not the work of God. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eateth them with offense. I mean, he's just reassuring you everything over and over and over again. The same things he's already said. 21. It is good neither to eat flesh nor to drink wine nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth or is offended or is made weak. Now listen, that's everything I've been telling you through the whole service. He's just reiterating it over and over and over. It ain't good to do any of those things if it's going to cause your brother to stumble. And if he's offended, or it didn't just say, it said stumbled, offended, or made weak. In other words, that's just making him weaker. We're not to do those things that would cause our brother to do that. Verse 22. Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. Happy is he that condemneth not himself in the thing which he alloweth. If you love one another, live like you love one another. Don't do things to create problems in the church. Don't do things to create problems in the family or in the home or in the work. Just don't do those things. preacher told me something one time about certain, and I'm not going to say what it was about something else, but it's something I do occasionally. And the preacher said, I'll be honest with you, brother. He said, if I heard you do that, I don't know. He said, I just don't know what I would think, you know. And I said, well, you won't ever have to worry about it. He knows what I'm talking about. I said, you won't ever have to worry about that because I wouldn't do it. We shouldn't. If you know somebody's offended by something, don't do it. That's a simple one, and don't judge them for it. But don't do it. It's just that. Go back to Matthew. There's more here in this text, but go back there to Matthew 7. What was it? 3 or 4, 5? You remember now? Yes, 6. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye pearls before the swine, lest they trample them under feet and turn again and rend you. Don't let the devil take something other that's supposed to be good and destroy it and create all these problems. It says he trample them under his feet. I mean, the Bible gets enough criticism. It gets enough criticism from liberals and everybody else out there, much less people that's trying to live a good Christian life to get caught up and even make more disgrace upon the name of Jesus and in Christianity. But then it says that talking about the dogs or the swine would turn and rend you, would turn and eat you and tear you to pieces. Don't do that. God's been good to all of us, me and you alike. And we need to do everything we can to upbuild the kingdom of heaven and not tear it down. And there's people trying every day to tear it down. And I realize the Bible said, you know, upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I understand that. But we don't need to do anything that's just going to create problems in our community and our churches. We need to be one of love and show love to mankind and lift up the name of Jesus. Jesus tells us if we'd be high and lifted up, or he'd be lifted up high, he'd draw all men nigh unto him. That's what we need to be doing. And you can't do that tearing one another down and putting stumbling blocks in the way and whatever the case may be, and judging one another. Anyway, I'm going to have to close. I'm way past my time. Anybody got a comment or something you want to say? Add? Question? Anybody? Go ahead, preacher. Small things is just what they are. We may never agree on them. But when we stand before God, he'll be the deciding factor on what we've done or not done. But I think small things, as I mentioned with Sunday, is areas. There's not black and white that I could read it and get something out of it, and you could read it and get something totally different. Now, I'm not telling you it means different because it's God's word. It's alive. It speaks to us. But it may also be longer that Christian walks with God. I mean, a Christian that stands before God has been saved 50 years and one been saved a year. Surely when we stand before God, the one that's been saved 50 years is going to have more to give an account for because he's had a lot more opportunities to do right or wrong. So that's really a hard question to answer is what I'm trying to say about little things. I mean, that's a hard question really to answer completely. I can say there's things we can stand on in God's word and say, hey, this is wrong. And I've mentioned them several times. And those are wrong, period, to do. Little things, I think it just comes from being people. Differences. I mean, everybody don't eat the same thing. Everybody don't drink the same thing. Everybody don't have the same hobbies, the same desires, the same everything. It's kind of a hard question to answer in a really, to be honest with you. I think anything that hinders us from serving God, whether it be little or big, we need to get rid of. Now, I will say that, whether it be little or big. But you got people, you got people in different counties, or I'll say different states rather. I'll use this for an example. When I went to basic training, and I had a drill sergeant from Alabama, I think it was. And I had got some Christian things in the mail because I was raised in church, and I got some stuff in there. They check your mail, when it come in, especially a thicker envelope, with some tracts. And somebody sent me some tracts or something like that. And anyway, I had gotten caught prior to that, chewing tobacco or something, some type of tobacco I got caught with prior to that. And he looked at me, he said, "You trying to tell me you're a Christian man with all that tobacco y'all chew? Or you chew," or something along those lines. But yet in Alabama, down there where he was from, the Christians didn't use tobacco, but yet they drink. You see what I'm saying? That's just, it's hard. It's just a tough question to answer because according to where you're raised, that people believe different things. I've talked to people that said they ain't never heard nobody not buying on Sundays. I've never heard that in my life. I mean, it's just difference in areas where people's raised and what you think. And you take a youngin', you raise a youngin' till he's 12 or 13 years old. He may not live by those things all his life, but he'll always know. He'll always remember them, what he could or couldn't do. I mean, it just always will. But anyway, I know that didn't answer your question, but it's really a difficult question to answer. Anybody else? I'll try. I understand where you're coming from, the little things. I understand that. I just think it's just, we always going to be little things that we just disagree on somewhat. No, go ahead. No. Sure. Oh, yes. Sure. No, that's right. That's exactly right. I'm just telling you these little things that everybody never agree on. I mean, when you stand before God, He'll have the right answers. Now, we may be wrong. I don't think, this is me again. You get this. This is Jay saying, I don't think the little thing is going to send you to hell. What's going to send you to hell if you reject Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of your life? It's going to send you to hell. The little things, I don't feel like it's going to send you there. It may cost you rewards, may cost you whatever the case may be. But I believe the only reason you'll die and go to hell is because you reject Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of your life. That's just me. Oh, yeah. Sure. Sure. That's right. It is. You're exactly right. That's what I'm telling you. You come to little things, it would be hard to. That's correct. That's right. 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 Sure. 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 I agree. I agree. Right. That's right. That's right. I agree. And you're exactly right for doing that. I told you, it's more of a tough subject to teach than what you realize. I mean, it really is. Because I'm sure there's some of you got questions that won't ask, I'm sure, about this or that or the other. We just need, this year, if you can love the Lord thy God with all your heart, mind,